Hello, and welcome to the Ultimate Strategy Podcast, your go-to podcast for everything strategy. Each week, we'll share a new episode covering a wide range of topics designed to help your business grow smarter by making strategy both approachable and actionable. I am Miriam Lisa, Strategy Execution Director here at Cascade.
And I'm Laura Blackmore, Head of Strategy Execution. Hi and welcome. We are very excited to have you with us today. This is just the beginning, so stay tuned for weekly episodes. Before we dive in, let me thank today's sponsor, Cascade. Cascade is the world's #1 strategy execution platform that helps turn visions into reality by working as the strategic brain in your organization. Thousands of top businesses around the world use Cascade to plan, execute, and track their strategies in one place, improving efficiency and speeding up decision-making. By successfully executing their strategies, Cascade customers are making a huge difference, from deploying life-saving vaccines to engineering the fastest Formula One car. If you want to get your team moving towards your vision in one central platform, check out Cascade at www.cascade.app. We'll also add the link in the episode notes. So let's get started. Today's topic is all about executing strategy with speed. Hopefully you'll walk away today by having a good understanding of the importance of speed and practical steps to help you execute your strategy with the speed that you need most. I think in today's fast-paced business environment, it feels like it's been speeding up every month for the last couple of years. But speed is not just a luxury, it's become a necessity. Companies that execute strategies swiftly and react very, very quickly to market changes are the ones that stay ahead of their competition and drive that sustained growth that we all need. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of some of the global giants who are really dominating their space. These are companies built around the idea of speed and innovation. So thinking companies like Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, Tesla, all of these brands that everybody talks about every day are big global companies. These are the companies that have the ability to make fast decisions in terms of innovation. They're able to be agile and pivot at the right moment. And they also have that creative flair to serve their market. And that's truly what's propelled them to become global giants. Miriam, tell me, in your opinion, why is speed important?
Yeah, thank you so much for the intro, Laura. Several reasons. I mean, first of all, like whether you are a business owner out there or a CEO or a founder, whatever position you have, you will be faced probably with the challenges of your competition, either moving faster or your customers expecting your product to be on shelf or online or wherever you can buy it faster. So I think it's just this combination of the world obviously we're living in and where everything is available at your fingertips. I mean, where everybody is almost trained to know I can order it on Amazon and I'll get it tomorrow. That's the competition that's out there for many, many things. And customers and consumers, they just expect that. So they don't expect any long hurdles to buy anything. They don't want to wait anymore. And we have to, and that's ultimately, I think, the challenge that we've created and put on ourselves. And as a company, how do we respond to that? So hopefully you'll walk away with some practical tips today, how to be more agile but also just create the right environment in your organization to set yourself up for responding and acting with speed. I would also say ultimately it is a competitive advantage. But it has to be also used in the right way, right? Like speed, I find, especially if you're using speed internally to speed up your processes and all of that, that can, for example, also lead to burnout of people, or not everybody's made for it. And not every, it really also depends on the product, let's be honest here. But some industries they might not need that. Well, everybody needs some level of speed, but some maybe a little more than some others. So it's like finding the right balance that serves you internally, but mainly also serves your customers, and obviously creates for yourself and your organization a competitive advantage as well.
I like that. And I think one piece or one core principle that I think many organizations need to get right in order to almost get off on a good foot before they start executing sort of, with speed or sort of violently trying to execute their plan. I think the first one is sort of that clarity of the vision. And it can be super simple, but I think getting really super, super clear on the vision and not being too specific, like, for example, we're going to deliver this thing this year, that's really going to stifle that innovation if market trends or if different things happen. But I think getting really visionary with that vision and making it really, really ambitious and a bit longer term, I think is really important. I think something as well that I know you and I talk about quite often is that sort of organizational culture and the values actually allowing your teams to move with agility. So, not giving people that fear of failure, really making people empowered to make decisions. A really, really, really cool quote that said something like, it really resonated with me. It was like, do you remember the last time you were in a meeting and someone said, we are going to make that decision before we leave this room? Like, imagine how empowering that feels to say, yeah, we're not leaving the room or we're not ending this meeting until we've made a decision. I think that just propels people to feel like, yeah, we're going to get this done. We're not going to have any bureaucracy. We're not going to have any politics. We're not going to wait for somebody else to make the decision. We're going to make that decision today so that we can leave confidently and go and execute what we need to do.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such an important point, and just like anchoring down again on that empowerment of the employees. I feel like that's a cornerstone, especially for speed internally and how you move your organization faster. Maybe if we're touching a little bit on some of those more practical ideas, how to achieve some of these really important principles of like that vision, the focus, and really that empowerment of your teams to move with agility. One thing that comes to mind for me first is, if we're just staying a little bit on the topic of the empowerment of the people and more of the internal processes, is how to bring teams together cross-functionally. And whether it's in a big organization, and in my past, I've worked in many really big organizations, and the silo thinking is always a huge, huge topic, and often holds back decision making, but also slows down processes. And it's so critical. Like, one of my roles in the past was literally to help all the teams to be aligned and to like work together cross-functionally. And it's really hard. It's not very easy, but it's all possible with creating that right focus where teams are looking at the same goal and helping them to regularly see the commonality so that they're not working against each other, but really that understanding of like they're all working towards the same goal. So that would be one thing for me where I find that's always a good starting point to internally move things faster, because that's where you have to start, right? You have to start with what does the consumer want and how do I reverse engineer essentially internally to get to that as fast as possible and in whatever industry that might be. So internal processes are obviously key. What is something else that you would say, Laura, that really sticks with you for any of those more practical advices that we might want to give our audience today?
I think something actually while you were talking, it made me think back to a moment this week. Actually, I met with an organization who actually don't have any challenges with their strategy. They have been growing super, super fast, almost too fast for the business, but it's going really well. They're in an industry that historically has been a little bit slower, but business is booming for them. And I think one of the major reasons when I was looking at their strategy is they have super, super clear focus areas that have been embedded across their organization now for 2 years. They're in the second year of these 6 very distinct focus areas. They're very, very clear. If I was joining the business new, I would be able to look at them and go, yep, I know exactly what this business wants to focus on. And I think because they've allowed that to bed in, and because it's really, really clear, it's meant that the businesses who are building the strategies from the ground up are able to go, yeah, I know what we're focusing on, and I can recite them. I think that's like one of the other solid examples is that everybody can recite these 6 focus areas. I got a glimpse of it today and I could tell you what the 6 are. Super simple, crystal clear, and everybody who's writing the strategy know that everything must fit into one of these focus areas. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. And I think that was just such a great example of really letting something bed in. And I think we've talked a couple of times about, yes, you can still have an agile strategy, but you can still have components that stay the same year on year, because for them, their long-term vision, the next 5 to 10 years is all about getting these 6 focus areas right. And everything beneath that can shift and change. And as market demand and as they enter new countries and they get faced with new, policies or laws in these countries, they stay true to their vision and their focus areas. I thought that was a really good example of the power in getting super clear with those. I thought was really good.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And even the fact that you already know them just after meeting with them shows how impactful and clear they were, right? If I'm thinking like maybe someone in our audience, not everybody might have that clarity right now, or they might not have the clear focus area set, or they feel like maybe there is too much going on, which we often experience as well in our jobs, right? Like that there is too much, and people feel like we need to prioritize, we need to simplify. So I think that's another thing I'd like to touch on a little bit with you too, is for someone who's out there, like what are some practical tools that they can use to get to maybe more focus, or even if you're an individual out there or you're a founder, you're just getting started in your business, maybe you have too much on your plate, like what is it that you want to focus on to be fast and efficient? And I think there are a couple of really good matrices and frameworks out there. What's one that kind of stands out to you or that you personally like the most?
Yeah, I think, there's definitely tons of matrices that you can use out there. I think for me, the ones coming to mind are like the Eisenhower matrix. You've got the prioritization matrix, where you sort of are looking at the impact versus kind of the cost, or, how quick you're going to be able to get things done. I think quite often, like in a product or a tech business, it's really easy to say, yep, this has got huge impact and we can get it delivered really, really quickly. Of course, that's the thing you're going to do first. If it's low impact and it's going to take forever and it's going to cost a ton of money and resources, yeah, maybe you want to put that on the back burner. And I think just having that in the back of your mind, or that sort of that thinking around looking at things from an impact versus cost perspective, or the resources that you have available, I think looking at your projects or your initiatives or even your objectives, looking at them or plotting them in this sort of framework, if you like, sort of like a graph format, if you like, and you can use Post-it notes or whatever. You can do it in a you can do it online if you want, or like a mind mapping tool. But I think really holding true to that sort of prioritization and using the matrix can serve you really well. I think the other thing that I would also recommend, and keen to get your thoughts on this, I think you definitely don't want consensus to hold you hostage, but I think getting people's inputs on, and a wide range or diverse perspective of inputs on what other people in the business think should be the priority. I remember actually running a workshop not too long ago where there were 50 people in the room prioritizing what they were going to do that year. The perspective or the opinions were so wide ranging that I could really see how frustrating it became for the business to actually agree on anything. And I think it could have gone one or two ways. One, it could have, they would have got into this perfection paralysis and spent months trying to like figure out the answer. But actually what we did is say, okay, we've got all these great ideas. Let's put some of them together, let's bundle them in a pile, the things that are similar. And then let's have a look at what the cost is going to look like, what resource you have available, what's going to make a huge impact. Let's go back to your original vision, your intent, your focus areas. Let's look at what the business is trying to achieve. And only then, with all of that information and data, can then they make an informed decision. And it meant that we can get rid of some low-hanging fruit. We can get rid of some noise, that was maybe disrupting. And then we can maybe make the group of decision makers a little bit smaller. But at least we've had that diverse input, and especially employees or members of the team that are with customers every day or out in the field, like they're the ones who are going to have so much strong intel. So I think that would be it for me. What about yourself? Do you have a favorite in mind?
Yeah, the impact effort matrix is probably also my favorite, especially if you're like trying to prioritize a number of bigger projects that have like that cost related to it as well. But other than that, even like for individuals, even just to go through like a start, stop, keep exercise can be really powerful on just even whether it's a weekly or a monthly basis. Anything that helps to kind of eliminate what might not be that important, but also anything that might show what is the quick win that you can do quickly and show a success, whether it's to your employees or your team or whatever that may be. Another point I would say, and that's maybe more for, I don't know, the CEOs or founders out there that feel maybe they're almost in this position of like overwhelmed sometimes, and like maybe also the pressure of needing to that they need to make all these decisions. I always like to say as well, like slow down to speed up. It's like taking that moment and stepping out for whatever time is needed and really create that space as well to really like, and that's not for everybody, but for some this might resonate, just to take that room to breathe and get that space and then come back and with more clarity to understand like what is it truly that might make the difference, or that is this true competitive advantage to focus on. That's
I
another thing
like that.
I usually believe it's a really good thing to do as well.
I think as well I definitely see how this applies. This applies to sort of CEOs and founders, but also anyone who's like making a decision. I think the process of making or remaking or changing decisions wastes such a huge amount of time at organizations. I think that empowerment and accountability for more people to be able to make decisions, which can seem really scary, but I think the key takeaway really is when a decision is made is much more important than what the decision is. And I think a lot of the time the decisions aren't that impactful to the business. We can make micro decisions that have a huge impact. But if you're, I've personally not worked in many slow organizations. I've worked in a lot of almost too fast organizations. You've got to be, you've got to make decisions and you've got to fail, and you've got to fail fast and kind of pick yourself back up. But I would feel incredibly frustrated working in a slow organization where I need that committee, I need that agreement in order to do maybe something really, really small. And I think that can be powerful in itself as well. Do you have any maybe final closing thoughts around how you can maybe foster a culture where employees feel empowered, or how you maybe like motivate people or hold them accountable for like their performance and their results?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think it's all connected, right? If there is a clear vision or clear goals out there and people feel connected to it, and also maybe identify those quick wins either on their own or in their teams. I think that can always be also a way to incentivize that, especially when we're thinking more through the lens of speed. Providing teams with like a little bit of an incentive can be powerful, but ultimately just like also creating, I think you mentioned it earlier, creating that environment where failure is seen as like fail forward, right? And innovate with it and learn through it. And just fostering that mindset of like trying things out sometimes as well. And of course, again, it doesn't work for everybody, it doesn't work in every industry, but in some, this whoever listens might know where it works and where it doesn't. But that can be just really powerful to reiterate that and really give teams the confidence to do it. And quite frankly, I think the best way to empower your people is to just live by example and just and do it yourself and show that this is a good thing to do. I think that's usually the most empowering element.
I like that. Well, I think that wraps up today's episode. I think to kind of close out, I think we've covered a lot of land in terms of speed being critical for maintaining that competitive advantage. I think always being able to foster innovation. It's happening, double or triple the speed than it ever has before, particularly in sort of the tech and innovation space. I think being able to increase the efficiency of your teams by really empowering them to make key decisions. I think in terms of sort of the key takeaways, I know we've covered a few bits and pieces here around the competitive advantage and prioritization metrics and empowerment and accountability. I know we've got a superb blog on this, so we will leave the link in the thread as well. But any final thoughts from you, Miriam?
Yeah, I think we covered quite a bit, but yes, so I guess like maybe just to summarize is like really understanding what the competitive advantage is as well that you want to seek, and then really supporting that through the right focus and the right prioritization. Communicate that, use any matrix that you might need. And then obviously internally look back and understand like how can you empower your people? How can you create the right accountability as well? And also how do you maintain the right quality of work as you're progressing with a lot more speed in the organization? So really supporting this fail forward culture a little bit is probably the last element I would say here.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed our chat today on how to execute with speed. Hopefully, you found it as insightful as I have and that it helps you on your journey to better strategy execution.
And make sure to tune in next week when we'll be talking about common frameworks for your strategy execution. It's going to be a great episode filled with practical tips you won't want to miss.
And in the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Ultimate Strategy Podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. Check out the links. I think we mentioned a couple of resources, so you can find them in the episode description. And a big thank you again to our sponsor, Cascade, for making this podcast possible.
Thanks for listening. And remember, great strategies are only as good as their execution.
So take action, make it happen, and see the results. See you in the next episode for your weekly dose of strategy.